everyone, it's John from What Up. Welcome back to another video. I have a very special guest with me this evening, Richard from Wheel of Time Theory. He recently attended an event in London, and he's here to tell us all about it this evening. So Richard, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and your channel, and what it is we're going to talk about tonight.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Richard. I am known as Wheel of Time Theory, I guess. And today we're going to be discussing the 4 scenes I saw exclusively at the London Comicon, which was on yesterday. Well, actually, it's now 2 days ago for myself. But yeah.
I'm super excited to talk about this. I didn't even know it was happening. Like, there was no advertisement, really. Like, I didn't see anything about it at all. Was there anything over in the UK, or...?
Absolutely nothing. So I woke up on the Friday not thinking the day would pan out the way it did. Then I saw on Twitter that there was talk of a Wheel of Time, booth there, but it was from like this, unofficial sources, and I couldn't find any news articles online. But then, maybe an hour or so later, I managed to find 2 articles from websites that I've never heard of in my life. So I was still skeptical. But then I managed to find a photo of the booth, and then I basically rushed everything, got the tickets to make sure I could go along, and rushed on down there. Yeah,
that's awesome. Like, I'm super excited. So I want to thank you very much for being here. This is super cool that we're going to get to talk about this. So I've left a link to his channel down below in the description box. There's also a reaction video. So he took the reaction video while he was watching the clips. I've left that link down there too, and he will be releasing a quite largest breakdown of all of them on his channel as well. So go over there, make sure you subscribe to him and follow him for all of that. So before we get into the video, spoiler warning, in this video we're going to talk about certain elements of episode 1 of Amazon and Sony's Wheel of Time show. So if you haven't read at least book 1 of the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, that's The Eye of the World, be forewarned, we're going to ruin major plot points and character arcs from that book. Alright, all of that being said, let's get on to the video. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about these clips. You were really lucky to see this online. And I know you mentioned it earlier, but there really wasn't much talk about this. Now, the marketing for the Wheel of Time show has taken off in some aspects, and in other aspects, it's been a really big letdown, at least in my opinion anyway, because they don't seem to really focus on some of the stuff that would be really huge to the general public. And I think this is one of the things that if they had advertised it, they probably would have had a lot more people talking about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The fact even us in the UK, we had no, official news from it from any of the social platforms or websites was really baffling to me. I even, phoned up and emailed just to make sure or try and get some confirmation. And I only got a reply earlier on Saturday, so a whole day afterwards. So it was lucky I actually found a photo and managed to go down and do it. But yeah, the marketing has been interesting, to say the least, is the way I would best describe it.
Yeah, there was some real big hits, and the hits seem to be with just fans of the show. I know I talk about this a bit on my channel. My wife is not a fan of the Wheel of Time at all. She's never read the books. She doesn't really care about them, but she does like fantasy shows. So I use her as kind of like just a sounding board for marketing and stuff for the show. And literally no one I've talked to anywhere has heard about the show at all in any way, shape, or form, except for people who already know about the book series or who are big fans. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, I'm hoping with the trailer that was recently aired at the beginning of Dune, which that was a big thing. I don't know if you've heard about that or not. So when Dune's in theaters, they actually aired the Wheel of Time trailer in front of it. That's the first time, I think, other than a couple of magazine articles, they're appealing to the general public. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe we'll see some more talk about it soon. But you did get to see these clips, and now these clips are all from the first episode, correct?
I would presume to be. They've never stated that, but just from what we've seen previously and just how I presume the episode is set up, it just had that feel. Yeah, they were all from the first one.
All right, so if you don't mind walking us through the first one, and then we'll chat just a bit about it, and we'll move on to the second.
Sure. So the first scene that I got to watch was Egwene's Women's Circle initiation. Essentially, everything we saw in that first teaser trailer that they dropped, I believe like a month or so ago, all the shots of Egwene in the river and being thrown in by Nynaeve, they were all from this sequence. So I saw quite a bit of talk. People thought the scene where she was, on her back floating in the river was from a different shot. That is included in this scene.
Okay.
But just to go back, that wasn't the start of the clip. To begin with, there is we begin with like Nynaeve and Egwene, and they're a bit further away from the cliff, more towards the safety area. And there's roughly, I would say, off the top of my head, maybe 20 or 30 women there. I was not expecting to see that many women from the Women's Circle.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, saying that, we don't actually have numbers, I don't believe, from the book. So
No.
they could kind of play around with just how many women they wanted to have in the scene. And essentially, we had Nynaeve giving a speech to everybody there about Egwene's, I believe the way they were putting it is her coming of age, if you want to put it like that, of joining the circle. Then she said a few words, to Egwene, just like we saw in the teaser trailer. And then we set off on the push into the river. And then we get Egwene then starts to flounder around in the pool because she's obviously in shock, as we saw. She's scrambling around trying to catch her bearings and breath. And then she slowly starts to compose herself. And then we go on a journey along the river. And there's, some really nice, beautiful shots from above, just like we saw in the teaser trailer, but it's a much more extended scene.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. And then we get that, floating kind of sereneness is how I describe Egwene looking within the river. And then my memory is a bit vague here because I actually only saw this scene once while I was in the booth, ironically. I don't know why that was, but yeah. But then I believe we cut to her basically coming out of the river onto the shore, and she's like scrambling, along the shore as she gets out, kind of panting. So yeah, that was the entirety of that first scene that I got to watch.
That's super cool. So there's been a lot of speculation of what the scene could be, but you laid it out. It's all chronologically in order. It's all from the same scene, and it's her either induction to the Women's Circle or coming of womanhood. One or the other. I think what they might do is they might have the Women's Circle be all the women in the village at this point. Maybe that's probably, if there's like 30 plus, it's a small village, of course, so I would say probably that's what they're going to do here. But that's really neat. I can't wait to see this on screen, actually. And I really hope they do something like that near me. They probably won't, but I'd love to see these scenes or have them released. What's the likelihood, you think, of some parts of these scenes being in the final trailer that we're going to get in the coming weeks?
That's a good question. It's really hard to say. I think a lot of the scene in general we already have got. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how they want to actually, play around with the trailer in terms of what they want to, focus, like the core point of the trailer. They might not want to focus on that. So there could be, shots here and there to spread out across the trailer. Mm-hmm. Maybe we would see shots of the kind of gathering of all the Women's Circle Association. I think that might be something they would include. But in terms of, new parts from that, I wouldn't presume to see a lot of it.
Okay.
But maybe one or two.
All right, awesome. All right, so you did mention that you saw 4 scenes in the booth. What was the second scene that you witnessed?
Yeah, so the second scene was one we've all seen. Essentially, it was the Winespring entrance with Lan and Moraine. So really, there's not a lot that was new that I saw there. So essentially, what was new was after Moraine has entered and she's ushered away to go upstairs to the room with Lan, we get like a new monologue with Rand and Perrin where they're discussing the arrival of Moraine and why she might be in the village, because obviously I don't presume they've ever had an Aes Sedai turn up there.
Yeah, 100% since they're so tucked away.
Yeah. Exactly, and we kind of know from the books they just essentially get 1 or 2 visitors on particular times in the year. They kind of just talk about the tales I presume they've heard from growing up, the fairy tales or the things they have been told. But then we get Nynaeve entering to the scene, and she kind of just bats them away as stupid children. Why are you thinking this? Just in the general way.
She's just Nynaeve, yeah.
Exactly. Zoe Robbins, she does fantastic.
Oh, that's
I'm
really good to hear.
Looking forward to see. much more of Zoe in a nanny's role. Yeah, she was really good. Not much really more to add to that. We see a shot of Moraine and Lan actually go upstairs in the inn, and then that's kind of, from my recollection, really what was the end of that scene.
Okay, so sort of like the teaser that Amazon Prime put out with the Wine Spring Inn and whatnot, just a little bit added to that. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
very neat. So the third scene and the fourth scene are both stuff we haven't seen before, from what I understand from when I read your notes earlier, and they're really exciting stuff. So let's dive into those, because they're the ones I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this third one in particular was amazing. I could probably talk about this particular scene for hours and hours on end. So yeah, essentially it's winter night and the Trollic attack on the town. So we begin, I suppose, in a way I wasn't expecting. Moraine and Lan are now out of the village, and they're much higher up in the mountainside that we see in the shots of that initial Wine Spring Inn scene. Starts with Moraine on her own, tending to the horses. Then Lan comes into the shot, and he informs Moraine that a fade is very near to the Emmons field, and he's got dozens of Trollocs with him or with them. And so he then goes on to ask Moraine, do you know exactly who is the dragon, or who is the one you're looking for? To which she then replies, no, I don't. But obviously, as we know, she has an inkling of which people to look out for. So then we get a cut, and then we get like the Beltane celebrations. We see what we saw in the teaser trailer, the dancing with one another out in the green. And then it's quite interesting. We get a shot of Perrin with Layla Ibarra. And from what I saw, it wasn't a very long scene, but they do look like they're a couple. So that's very intriguing to see what goes on in that situation and how that unfolds. Next, we get we get Egreen having a dance with someone, and we may presume, and I presumed it would end up being Rand, but in fact it's someone else. It's another man. Who that was, I couldn't tell you. I didn't really see or understand who he was. So then they're dancing away, and all of a sudden the man, he just kind of spits blood out essentially and falls into Egreen, and she's obviously taken aback by this, and she's not worried or alarmed by it. She's just very confused. And then I think she says something along the lines of, what's wrong? And then we get a cut. She looks down, and what we see is the Trollic's weapon. It could have been a scythe, I cannot remember, but it's sticking out from the man, and it's covered in his blood.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I lost my mind when I saw that. And then essentially Egreen lets out a huge horrifying scream. Then this guy, he falls to the floor, because I think Egreen has either let go of him and in the shock of seeing this. And then we get the reveal of the Trollic for the first time, and obviously it's towering. It's
how did it look?
Fantastic. It looked really good. As we've all known, it's obviously loads of prosthetics, and they actually created these pieces for people to wear on set. You do not for 1 second feel like this is something out of the ordinary or doesn't fit in with the rest of the scene. It looks like it's an organic, real human or humanoid, if you want to put it like that. And then essentially all hell breaks loose in the scene. It's very, very kind of messy, kind of how you would have it in an actual real war. It's the shots are cut from scene to scene of Trollocs entering from loads of different points of Emmons Field. They start attacking and butchering the people. They're snorting and snarling, as we know from the books. It's very guttural and visceral, the sounds they make as well. And just the atmosphere change within these scenes is fantastic, because it's very joyous, everyone's joyful, and then it's just completely changed. Everyone's screaming, all hell is broken loose. And I've mentioned this in my video, but it's very hard to actually get a understanding of everything that's going on in the scene because it's so frantic. You'll miss without a doubt certain things that happen, and you're going to have to watch it back over and over again to see everything, which I think is really nice, and it's obviously a reason to keep on watching it back again. We get shots of Matt. He is very interesting in how he approaches everything in the scene. Essentially, it's like when you see certain passages in like war stories or in war scenes in films, where that one person kind of seems to blissfully kind of glide through all the commotion, and he doesn't get touched or attacked by any of these Trollics. He's literally an arm's length away from reaching out, or a Trollic from reaching him. People are getting attacked and killed in front of him and to the side of him. But yeah, he never gets touched. Wow. Then he makes it into his house. His family are all in there and they're all unharmed. Very interestingly, we hardly get anything of Perrin in this scene. It's literally, I think it's from the how do they say it, bonus teaser we got yesterday, where we see him in the blacksmith's forge with the lightning. That's exactly what we got from Perrin in this scene. What else can I say? This is a bit disjointed. Everything that I'm talking about right now might not be in the exact order. But yeah, and then we get, obviously, I remember I mentioned Sen Bui. He's attacked and he's been injured. And Nynaeve and the Green now are helping him. I forgot to actually mention this earlier because my mind just goes all over the place. But Nynaeve rescues Green right at the beginning of the Trollic attack, essentially. And just carries her away to safety. Green is asking why is this happening as well, which was interesting to hear. But then, the wisdom kicks into wisdom mode essentially and tends to Sen. Wraps his wound up on his leg, and it's kind of, I feel, trying to be gentle and saying you're okay, your wound has stopped bleeding and whatnot, but he bites the dust.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And that's why there's no thatch in Emond's field. Wow.
Exactly.
So that's really cool. And one of the things I want to mention here is you said that you got a quick shot of Perrin, but that was pretty much it in the forge. It might be because of all the rumors around Lila Ibarra and him, in the fact that the rumors are essentially that during the attack he's at the forge and he accidentally kills her. So maybe they didn't want to reveal that just yet. That's a possibility too. Yeah,
it is very much could be. The scene, even though it's very cohesive in the way it looked and how it played out, there could certainly be scenes that they've purposely kept back for the show when it actually debuts next in November. So it's certainly something I could see happening, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that if it does happen.
I can't wait. So the level of gore and the level of frightening scenes. So a lot of people speculated that they're going to tone it down because the rating, I think, in the US is 14, Canada is 16. I don't know what it is in the UK. I don't know what they've rated it there.
I believe it was about 16 as well.
So
something along those lines.
So on a scale of like Disney to Sam Raimi, like what's the level of gore?
We're not anywhere near the Disney level, and we're kind of nowhere near the Sam Raimi level either. We're kind of in between, much more towards Sam Raimi level or Game of Thrones, essentially.
Okay.
There's blood, as I've mentioned. Just seeing the Trollic's weapon through the body of the man Green was dancing with kind of just spells it all out to you. Yeah. They're not going to mollycoddle around with how they portray these scenes. They're awesome. Playing it very mature. There's not like this Game of Thrones or Walking Dead over theatrical kind of performance of blood splurting out of people. It has more of a natural realistic feel to it, but it's very intense. It's very realistic, I think, is the best way I could put it.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to see it, really, personally. It's going to be really cool. Now, there's one more scene that you did get to see. Tell us a bit about that one. Hard act to follow from the third one, though.
That's it. I'm actually not finished in the third scene.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, there is one more scene, one more shot and sequence in this Winter Night portion that I saw, and that is the attack on the Alpha Farmhouse. And
Oh,
we
that's
get the
right.
introduction. I am believed to be Narg as well. So yeah, that was fantastic to see. I was really hoping they would include, all those scenes from the books.
So did you get to see
Um,
Narg talk at all?
that's the thing. This is what put me off, whether it actually was Narg or not. Um, the Trollic essentially breaks in through the door,
Mhm.
and then basically have a fight sequence. But the interesting thing to note is Tam and Rand, they are ready for this Trollic to come on in. So I feel they've kind of got an inkling of, movement outside from previous scenes we might not have seen, but also the fact of what happens on the Quarry Road when Rand sees the Fade.
Mm.
I believe, obviously, Tam's experience in the army from his kind of past life that he's put behind him, he obviously believed Rand when Rand told him he'd seen what he didn't know to be a Fade, and so Tam was being ready and waiting for certain events that might unfold. And so yeah, Trollic breaks in. Tam grabs a spear from off his wall. He kind of stabs it towards the Trollic, and this is where it gets really interesting, and we get a feel and understanding for how Trollics are going to be portrayed in terms of how deadly and dangerous a foe they're going to be for just general humans. This, lunge or attack with the spear, it essentially doesn't really do anything to the Trollic whatsoever. It hardly bats an eyelid and just carries on with its attack. In the meantime, Rand has got his bow and arrow out, and he's left loose a couple of arrows into the Trollic. That's even worse than the spear. Nothing. It just kind of bounces off of him from what I can recollect, which is really nice to see. And then Tam, I believe, momentarily he gets flung off to the side, and he's got maybe a wound on his left side of his chest or lower abdomen. And it looks for a moment he's about to be killed, and then this is when Rand jumps on top of the Trollic and is trying to grab him away from Tam. And then this is really interesting as well, and I love this particular part of this scene. The Trollic either picks Rand up to a degree and throws him into the wall, or the Trollic is so powerful, its power flings Rand into the wall. Rand smashes into it, breaks ornaments, I believe, that were hanging on the wall, and is momentarily knocked unconscious. So that was really cool to see. It's given a feel and an understanding of kind of the power behind every Trollic, and how it's going to take multiple men and women, with their swords and weapons that don't have the power or any of these sorts of attributes in the world to be able to bring it down. There's quite a lot more, so I'm still going to keep going. So then, yeah, Rand's been hit, he's unconscious. In the meantime, Tam has gone to the bed portion of the room, and he's gotten the trunk out where his heron mark sword is in. He's unsheathed it, and this is a really cool thing I noticed in the scene. They have branded the heron mark on the actual blade itself.
Oh, that's super.
Because I remember, yeah, a lot of people were a bit kind of disappointed in the blade. I think it was the heron mark blade reveal of Lance, because there was no heron mark on the sword, and they're a bit, upset with that. But yeah, it's definitely in the show. It's going to be on Tam's sword, so I presume it will be popping up here and there in other characters' weapons as well. Then he kind of taunts the Trollicon, and it turns its attention towards Tam. And then this is really cool. He takes up a sword form.
Oh, no way.
So we get our first, look at one of the sword forms. Which one it is, I couldn't really tell you, but it looked really cool. You can tell Tam has become Blade Master Tam in this moment, because when he was, attacking a Trollic at the beginning, it was very, wild and in the moment. And now he's obviously, I would presume, gone into his flame and void to, gather himself, and now he's in serious mode. The fight continues. He lands 4 shots on the Trollic, which do seem to affect the Trolloc quite a bit more than the spear and arrows had previously. But then essentially the next scene, or the next portion of the scene, the Trolloc has now gone to attack the shoulder, and Tam is just trying to block it with the sword. And then the Trolloc decides, basically, screw this, I'm going to take my other arm, I'm going to use the full brunt of my force and kind of go into his shoulder slightly, which he does do, from what I can remember. And then it's at these moments we're thinking and seeing, wow, something might change from the story here, because there's no movement from Rand, we don't hear him or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, we get a close-up of the Trolloc, and I believe to be arrow comes out of his throat or neck region, and he's dead now, essentially.
Wow.
So yeah,
little bit different than the book, but that sounds like it's absolutely stunning to watch. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just listening to it. So really very cool, and it's nice to know that we're going to get the farm scene. We'll see the hair mark. Was it a wolf-snouted Trolloc? So was that the Trolloc? Did it have a wolf face?
I believe so, because I think Jason from Dragonmount, he did mention it in a tweet of his that it was looking like it was a wolf snout, so it was Narg. So that's why I presumed it was Narg. But then, because there was no talking from the Trolloc, it made me kind of doubt myself on whether it actually was. But I believe it is, and I believe they've kind of gone away from the scenes in the books and kind of just thought, we'll give him an extended scene in terms of giving him a chance to have a battle with Tam and Rand instead.
That's awesome. All right, so the third scene, it's going to be really hard to top that. That was they should have shown that last. I mean, realistically, I think anyway. Yeah. So you said there was one more they showed you in the booth. What was that?
So yeah, it's the aftermath of a winter night, essentially. All of a sudden, Rand has kind of teleported himself into the Emond's Field with Tam. We don't see Tam at the beginning of this scene, but essentially all the Emond's Field people who have managed to survive the onslaught of the Trollocs, they are now looking for someone to blame and to point the reason of blame towards. And that person is, understandably from their point of view, is inevitably going to be Moiraine and Lan.
The only strangers in the village at the time, yes.
Exactly. It's what everybody would do. So yeah, we get loads of dialogue from like the Emond's Field group that will leave with Moiraine and Lan. They essentially are saying, you've brought them all here. You turned up, and then Trollocs turn up. Max says something like, are you crazy, to Moiraine at one point, because she's trying to explain the reasoning why she arrived and why the Trollocs are there. So she point blank says to them, they're here because of you. And that's why I'm here, because they're here for you guys. So I have to be here for you. She explains how there was an Aes Sedai in the tower who 20 years ago, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, had the power or the gift of like foretelling. And she envisioned the dragon being reborn. And they've led it to this moment of coming down to Emond's Field. And it's really interesting what happens in this scene. So obviously at the mention of the dragon, we would all presume it's just Rand, Mat, and Perrin who the focus is on. But for the show, they also focus in on Egwene as well. So it seems that they might potentially be changing what they're looking for in the dragon, and they're including women in this as well now. Okay. Which is something I think is a nice change from the book, and it will give a sense of freshness for us book readers who've read the series. It's one of the new things that they've added into the show.
And it gives a little more mystery too, till probably I would assume the end of the first season when we realize who the actual dragon is. So
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, then there's one final really cool moment that happens right at the end of the scene. So Moiraine has basically commanded them, you're coming with me, and they've done as she's told them to do. So then we get the scenes, they're on the horseback leaving the village. Villagers are crying. We see a shot of Tam waving Rand goodbye. But then we get a narration from Moraine, or Rosamund Pike, however you want to put it,
Hmm.
of the intro that we get with every Wheel of Time book. So,
Oh,
that was fantastic to hear. I got goosebumps and chills throughout my body when I heard this being narrated.
so they probably won't open with it, but the end of the first episode with it, I like that. That's a really nice touch. I do like that. Now this is absolutely stunning and amazing. Thank you so much for talking with us here about this. Like we've heard from this, we know there's going to be some changes from the book to the show. Some people are a little upset about it. Some people are not. I myself am in the camp of I'm super excited because I've read the book series so many times that this is going to be like reading it for the first time all over again. There's going to be new stuff, but the heart of the story is still the same. And from what you've seen, it just kind of cements the fact that even though there are some small differences or some large differences, the story still takes the same flow, which is really, really good to hear.
Yeah, exactly. The heart of the story is still intact, but there's going to be changes. And I very much am like you. I've read the series before. I don't need a scene for scene, shot for shot, plot for plot recreation of that. I've always been the type to think this is going to be a new age, a new beginning for us book readers. We can experience something different, something new, something fresh, and it's going to be exciting for us all. That's how I believe people should be taking the show. Who would want to watch potentially 5 or 6 seasons knowing every twist and turn that's going to come? Where are you going to get your excitement away from the fact that you're seeing all these scenes that you've had internal monologues with and picturing in your brain? That obviously is always going to be exciting for us all, but we know everything that's going to happen. We know it all. So I thought and think changes are essential to give us as book readers a fresh feel to it. It'll give us excitement, not knowing every twist and turn that's going to happen. We're going to doubt ourselves, second guess whether what we're seeing on the screen is playing out the way we've seen in the books. There might be huge changes, and for one, I'm really excited by that.
Me too. I can't wait to see what surprises me when I watch the first season. Now, I do have just a couple more questions before you go. First one's being quality. Now, a lot of people are very concerned about the quality of the acting, the way things look on screen. How did that come off to you?
I didn't feel like I was watching actors. It just felt natural. It felt like I was watching these characters just be brought to life. They are the characters essentially to me now. I didn't feel, this is a bit of a weird, acting here. Nobody stood out. They all look like they kind of, belong together. I'm sure they've all bonded with one another, away from the set, and they're all friends. And that's helping with the process when it comes to, transforming that into the acting. And it really, shows in there. The chemistry with everyone seems to be fantastic. And just the general feel. I didn't for one second kind of come out of the zone I was in while watching it. It was like reading the book, but watching the book instead.
Yeah, no,
and that's awesome. What I loved about it.
That's awesome. That's really, really good to hear. Now, for everyone watching out there, again, I do want to reiterate that Richard from Wheel of Time Theory, go to his channel. The link is down below in the description box. Subscribe to him. He has some fantastic content. He covers a lot of Wheel of Time news, gets a lot of information there, so you're going to watch that. And I've left links to not just his channel, but also the reaction video, so you get to see him live reacting to. I watched it earlier tonight. It's an amazing video. You get to watch his face as he watches these things in the booth, and it was really cool to see. And then he also has a video that's coming out, which is a big breakdown of everything we've talked about tonight, with all of his thoughts and stuff in it, and you don't want to miss that either. So I want to thank you so much for coming. This has been absolutely amazing. And is there any last thoughts before we go?
Thank you for having me. First of all, John, it's been great to finally have a chance to interact and talk with you in person. And I'm just excited for, the whole community to finally get to watch, this first season in November. I think everybody's going to be very pleasantly surprised. I think it's going to be above expectations. And I'm just really looking forward and counting the days now, essentially, until we get to the
less than a month.
Day.
Less than a month.
Exactly, right?
So close. Yeah.
So close. It still feels kind of surreal. But it's creeping up on us, but I'm still kind of in the mode of it's not really happening yet.
Yeah, it's going to be the morning of, and I still won't believe it's happening.
Exactly.
All right, well, thank you all so very much for sticking with us here to the very end, and here's to many more.